Hey there, everyone. It's Kira. I wanted to take a couple of minutes to share a very personal and slightly sweary story with you. It's a story about my own journey from how I woke up, stopped sabotaging myself, and found the love of my life in the process. So, part one of the story starts in 2013. That was the year I turned 40, and I was visiting my parents for a weekend. I think we were watching Say Yes to the Dress because my dad weirdly loved TLC, but we were talking about marriage and weddings. And my dad just very plainly and offhandedly said to me, "Well, I don't think you'll actually ever get married." And in that moment, although marriage had really never been the goal for me, I totally and completely lost my shit. I was so angry. I yelled at him. "How dare you tell me if I'm going to get married or not, or if it's in my cards? How dare you?" I lost it in a way that I just usually don't. Because if there's anyone out there who can trigger you, it's family. Am I right? And my dad, bless his cotton socks, could trigger the fuck out of me. And in that moment, he was able to calm me down enough to say, "Now wait a second. Here's what I meant. I didn't mean that you couldn't be married if you wanted to. It's just that I've never seen you prioritize love or dating." He went on to say, "For the first part of your life, you traveled a lot. That was your passion. Now I see you working 10 plus hours a day on this business. I've just never thought it was something you really wanted because it's never been part of your priorities." And believe me, I was fucking gobsmacked, absolutely floored in that moment. My father, who is truly the least emotionally evolved human being on this earth, actually just dropped some knowledge on me. I mean, I'd already been a life coach for maybe 5 years at that point. But I stepped back, I thought about the conversation, and most importantly, why I reacted the way I did. And all of a sudden I was like, fuck, I think he's right. I haven't been prioritizing love or dating at all. And maybe some of you all relate. I'm okay single. I preferred that to the shit show that was dating and relationships that I saw around me. But if I'm also honest, when I'm alone, especially watching TV, watching a favorite TV show or a romantic movie, as much as I wanted to convince myself that I wasn't really interested in a relationship, that wasn't completely true. I would find myself on a regular basis thinking and wondering and wishing that someone great would just enter my life. I mean, I didn't want to actually have to work on it in any way. I was hoping for more of a Bewitched, My Dream of Jeannie, Weird Science situation at that point, where if I just think about it hard enough or create one of those 4-page soulmate lists, the right person's just going to weirdly knock on my door or accidentally bump into me on the street, because that's a thing, right? Because when I had thought about love and relationships and dating, man, that felt so hard. And I would shut it down in my head because it felt scary and exhausting. And at that point in my life, if I'm being honest, I wasn't in a great place in my head. I didn't want to put myself out there to be vulnerable, to be possibly rejected. That sounded beyond fucking awful. And honestly, it was just easier being single. I traveled a lot, which I loved doing. And sometimes I'd find makeouts in between here and there to make sure my clitoris was still alive. So I never really had to try that hard or show them all of my stuff. Being single just felt so much easier than putting myself out there and having someone tell me that I wasn't lovable. So I just tucked the conversation back in my head and went along my merry way. But there's a second part of this story, and it's an important part because it happened only about 3 months later, in January 2014. I got a call from my mom that said something's happening. "Your dad is bleeding out. I've called 911. I don't know what to think. I think you need to come home right now." I ended up meeting them in La Crosse, Wisconsin, where when I walked in, my dad, my strong rock from my childhood, was delirious. He was hyperventilating. And I learned very quickly that he was going into sepsis from a massive infection in his colon. There were about 4 nurses and doctors looking after him at all times, and I will be honest that the next 48 hours will live in my head forever. First of all, we had to call my poor sister, who was in Florida at the time, on vacation, and have her get home immediately. And in that process, we learned more about those infections. It was such a mess that it would have to be removed in a 2-part surgery that Mayo fucking Clinic had never even performed. And they told my mom and I on the spot that my father is very, very sick, and his chance of living through the surgeries is about 5%. Now, most of that time is a blur because I was just walking around the hospital, crying, bawling, devastated, sobbing. It was one of the most horrible moments of my life, and I'll never forget that an hour before the surgery, my dad was in kind of a coma. He could hear us because he would occasionally squeeze our hands, but he was not able to respond to us. And we were just doing everything in our power to get my sister home, mostly to just say goodbye. My sister finally gets there literally minutes before they were taking him to surgery. And as she walked in with Chris, her husband, by her side, she's crying, getting all the information of what's going on. And I told her to take the moment with Dad to say whatever she needed to say. And in that moment, time stopped for me. And I will never forget it. Seeing my mother holding my dad's hand, sobbing, and telling my dad over and over again that she loved him. And my sister crying in my brother-in-law's arms. And I was there, standing in the corner of the room watching. And for the first time, I realized how truly alone I was. All the excuses I had made to myself that I didn't really want love, all the work I had made more important in my business, all of the silly distractions of people I knew weren't ready or a good match, or in no way could love me because they didn't even love themselves. I knew all of it, and all of it came to a head in that moment. I said to myself, Kira, you're a liar. You have been lying to the most important person in your life, yourself. In that moment, I felt the regret that I had not been honest with myself, that I had truly wanted this, that I had wanted a relationship, that I had wanted a partner, that I had wanted deep and true love. And now in the corner of that hospital room, I'm watching my father die alone. There's no one here to hold my hand. There's no one here to give me a hug. There's no one to be my partner through one of the toughest and worst moments of my life. And I will tell you, hands down, that day, something shifted in me. Something changed for me. I had realized in that moment that I had chosen fear over love. I didn't mean to. In my 40 years of being alive at that time, I really thought I would have found somebody by then. I bet you did too, right? But somewhere along the way, I'd been diagnosed with PCOS, which had made me gain quite a bit of weight. And I was embarrassed of my body. And I thought that no one would truly love me as is because God knows I didn't. I also really didn't have a ton of dating and relationship experience. And had gotten to the age where I was pretty embarrassed when people asked me about my past relationships. And I didn't have that much to say. Or what I could say was that there was a trail of shitalicious situationships and dumpster fires where I was always too scared to ask for what I wanted or needed, and instead would pretzel myself so fucking someone would choose me for a while so I didn't feel like a total loser. I was the queen of trying to make chicken salad out of chicken shit. So about 8 months later, when Danny showed up in my life, I pushed through my fear and I chose love. What does that mean? It means I pushed through the uncomfortableness that I felt in having awkward conversations about what I needed to feel good. I pushed through the sheer terror of setting boundaries so I could feel safe in the relationship and not sabotage the fuck out of it like I had done so many times before, where I said I was okay, but I was not okay. I pushed through the shit about my body so that I could receive love from another person. I pushed through the weird nitpicky things in my head that would constantly take over my mind That way, I could end up back in my comfort zone of proving to myself that no one of quality really wants me and I'm clearly unlovable. But to this day, I know for a fact that that moment changed me. There had to be a point where my want and my need for love was bigger than my fear. And by the way, my dad did not pass away from those surgeries, but when he did pass in 2017, Danny was by my side, holding me, crying with me, offering the love and support that I had been wanting my whole entire life. And about 6 months later, I cried as I walked down the aisle at my wedding, thinking of my dad. Getting married for the first time at 45 years old. And here's the final part of this story. I didn't really find love. I found an awesome guy with similar relationship goals and values, and we have created a beautiful, stunning relationship where love is here every single day. One of the reasons I had stopped dating is because it felt so hard. But once I understood how to date with intention, what healthy relationships look like and feel like, how to set boundaries so that this felt safe at all times, how to speak up and ask for what I needed, this got easier and it became possible. We have been lied to. Love is not found. It is not hiding under a bushel. It is created. It is built between two people who are willing to show up, are willing to talk through the tough stuff, and keep choosing each other. So wherever you heard this, if your friend shared it with you or you got it in an email, go check out reinventingdating.com. You may assume that it's not going to work because you've tried other things like online dating and matchmakers, and it's tough out there. But I want to ask you a very important question. Do you want real love in a healthy relationship? Because if the answer is yes, how much are you willing to unlearn of the crap that you've been taught? Are you willing to get vulnerable? Are you willing to ask for what you need? Are you willing to say no and set boundaries to teach them how to treat you? Or are you just looking for some romantic fairy tale that doesn't even exist? Because love is going to ask you to push through the fear. And as I discovered in the ICU that day, my want and my need for love was going to have to be bigger than my fear of rejection, my fear of failure. And don't worry if you don't know how to do that or you think there's something too wrong with you. You were just never taught the mindsets and skills to actually get into a good working relationship. We were never taught it in school. We didn't learn it in college. And we're just out here like the blind leading the blind. We can do better. I've now worked with thousands of people to build the skills and mindsets to be able to choose their partner wisely, to be able to teach them how to treat you, and to build ridiculously happy and healthy relationships. You can catch just a glimpse of some of them in pictures, videos, testimonials, case studies on my success stories page. And if you think you might be ready to do the work it takes for an amazing and successful relationship, scroll down and schedule a completely no pressure conversation with me. Hit the button, put in your email, and let's set up a call and talk it out. I now know my relationship is truly one of the best things that ever happened to me. It has made me a better person, a better friend, a better daughter, a better human. But I had to show up and do the work for it, and I can help you do the same. Let's work together to meet love halfway.